Today we're going to be talking about 12 proven ways to make your ex jealous. So if you're interested in making them jealous, you're basically in the right place. Because today I'm going to show you some of the most effective ways to make your ex jealous so that they're drawn to you after a breakup. Now, the methods I'm about to unveil to you were chosen based on data from our success stories. People who've come through our program, successfully gotten their exes back, and we noticed over the time they used to do these things or a combination of these things that would elicit jealousy from their ex. So what are the 12 proven ways to make your ex jealous? Well, way number 1 is utilize a no contact rule. Way number 2 is employ the Holy Trinity on social media. Way number 3 is send your ex a subtext. Number 4, torture your ex with your success. Number 5, use subtle jealousy pictures. Number 6, compare your ex to someone else. Way number 7, become less available. Way number 8, look better than you did during the relationship. Way number 9, have a really close guy friend. Way number 10, compliment someone else in front of your ex. Way number 11, go on dates with someone new. And way number 12, outgrow your ex. Now, one quick note on that guy friend thing. I am mostly aiming this video towards women because most of the people who watch our YouTube channel are women. But that doesn't mean that men can't use this if they have a really close female friend. So what I'd like to do is briefly go through each one of the ways that we've found or proven to make your ex jealous and describe a little bit what I mean when I talk about them. So number 1, utilize a no contact rule. We are all familiar with the no contact rule. After all, it is without a doubt probably the most popular strategy to get one's ex back. But how does it elicit jealousy? Well, there's a lot of different ways that it elicits jealousy, but I would say probably the most effective way that it elicits jealousy is through a concept called psychological reactance. So generally speaking, human beings are born with behavioral freedoms. And when we feel one of those behavioral freedoms becoming threatened, we are likely to react in a way to try to get that freedom back. So it's a weird way. It's kind of like reverse psychology. But in and of itself, utilizing a no contact rule kind of triggers this behavioral freedom psychological reactance concept because you're taking your ex's freedom of talking to you away. And this oftentimes forces them to confront the reality that they may have lost you forever to someone else, which causes them to react in a way to try to get that freedom back. So utilize a no contact rule. I don't know what else to say other than just do it. Way number 2, employ the Holy Trinity on social media. So here's the thing. Holy Trinity, what is that? The Holy Trinity is basically a concept that I came up with in 2012, basically describing how you should live your life after a breakup. I basically said if you're to divide the most important aspects of your life up into 3 categories, they would be health, wealth, and relationships. Now, the challenge with the Holy Trinity is oftentimes health, wealth, relationships is really difficult to balance. Usually, if you want to spend a lot of time improving your health, something is going to suffer. Usually, your wealth is going to suffer because you're spending a lot of time doing health-based things and you're not spending as much time doing work-based things that can earn you kind of money. But then you have also the relationship side of things. Sometimes if you're so obsessed with your ex, you're neglecting those other areas of your life. So what you should be doing on social media is make sure that your posts are not one-sided. Make sure you're posting posts that are triggering your health, your wealth, and your relationships. So the way I always kind of teach people, and I know Coach Anna has maybe a different perspective on this, but this is sort of my approach, is I say, think of things that you can do to improve your health, your wealth, and your relationships outside of your ex. So this is relationships with friends, maybe even going on dates or something like that. And what you're going to want to do is if you're on any social media right now, ex-boyfriend recovery is just starting to get into TikTok. So I'm actually learning the ins and outs of TikTok, but really Instagram and Facebook are the big social media platforms that everyone in our realm uses. So what you're going to want to do is post something health related. Then the next day, post something wealth related. Then the next day, post something relationships related, maybe like a picture with your friend. And then post whatever you want for the next 2 days and then kind of go back to the beginning of the gauntlet. Health related, wealth related, relationships related, extracurricular fun stuff, whatever you want, and then kind of go back. And this is what you need to be doing consistently, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to show your ex that you are not hung up on them. And this in and of itself can make them feel a little jealous, because jealousy, we often think of jealousy in this very linear way where, hey, if I do something, guess what's going to happen? If I do something to make my ex jealous, it's going to usually involve someone else, right? But that's not always the case. Sometimes your ex can be jealous by the fact that you're handling the breakup better than they are. Way number 3, send your ex a subtext. All right, so what do I mean by this? Well, subtext is kind of an interesting literature concept. Subtext is oftentimes when you say something, or when an author is writing something and there's a lot more loaded meaning in what they're saying. Game of Thrones is really good for having subtext. And what I mean by this is, like, sometimes a character would not explicitly state their intentions, but they would say something that would lead you to believe, oh, this is what they mean. Well, this is kind of the concept that we want you to employ. So send your ex a subtext. Well, basically, let's imagine for a moment that you and your ex are past the no contact rule. You're in that building rapport phase, and your ex texts you, and you don't respond immediately. You wait maybe an hour or two, and then you respond, oh, hey, sorry, I was at a movie with a friend. Now, what's the subtext there? Well, the subtext is you were at a movie. This is what literally happened with a friend. But who is this friend? Could this friend be something more? Was she on a date? Was he on a date? What's going on here? This is a perfect example of a subtext. So ideally, the subtext concept that we're talking about here is built to make your ex sort of use their own rope and let their imagination go wild. Hopefully that makes sense. Way number 4, torture your ex with success. So I'm a big believer in that Frank Sinatra quote, which is, the best revenge in life is massive success. One of the smartest things that you can do is not rub your ex's face in your success, but also live with success. What do I mean by that? Well, I've been recently reading about this very interesting character named David Goggins. David Goggins, he's a pretty well-known internet personality. He curses a lot, but what's interesting is I didn't find out about this guy. He's like a motivational speaker. He was like a past Navy SEAL. He's got like all of these really interesting aspects. He's like known for ultra marathon running. He ran like 240 miles in one day, which is just like insane, and it's hard to wrap your head around. But what's interesting to me is David Goggins in and of itself. This is a human being who literally tortures people with success, and other people take notice and are naturally drawn to him. So I'll give you an example. So David Goggins, and I'm not by any means saying that you do this. I'm just using this as an example to illustrate the point of torturing your ex with your success. So David Goggins wanted to raise money for some fallen veterans, and he decided that he was going to try to run the hardest race imaginable. He's a Navy SEAL, so he's in incredible shape. He's like a natural born killer, quite frankly. And he wanted to run this really long sort of 100-mile race through Death Valley at its hottest temperature. But turns out you can't run this race without getting an invite to it, because it's extremely dangerous. And so he called up the invite guy, and the guy said, hey, I'm not going to let you run my race unless you prove to me that you are capable of doing it. So there's this race coming up, and I want you to go to it, and it's like a 1-mile track. You run around the track, and ultimately you just sort of keep running as long as you can, try to get to 100 miles. David Goggins says, roger that, and gets to running. He shows up. But what's interesting is this track is actually, this race around this track is not supposed to be done alone. You're supposed to actually have people that sort of like race with you. So you run like 1 mile, and then you sort of tag your teammate, and then they run a mile, and then they tag another teammate, and they run a mile, and then you get to run another mile. So you're supposed to get the 100 miles in, but you're supposed to almost have like a relay sort of situation, a team. Well, there's these people who are like watching, who have shown up to this this race, and literally the craziest thing happened. So they're showing up to this race. All these people are ultra marathoners. So there are people who run marathons like easy, right? But even they came to this race with other people to hit the 100 miles. So they're going around and they look at this guy, and this guy, they're like, wait, where's his team? This guy is just running around and around and around and around and around. And people are like, what the heck what is with this guy? But they're naturally drawn to him. There's a certain element that this guy has. Like, he's being incredibly successful at what he does. To make a long story short, that person was David Goggins, this Navy SEAL who wanted to just qualify for this race. He got 70 miles into the race doing it alone, and he broke down. He broke his feet. And he began to experience kidney failure, and he still went on. So he somehow gutted out the last 30 miles and had to be rushed to the hospital. But everyone there was like almost in awe of him. So I think this is a perfect example of leading with the concept of, like, when I say torture your ex with success, I'm not saying like, hey, you got this new promotion at work, get in your ex's face and like torture them. Say like, yeah, haha, I gotta. No. What I'm talking about is I want you to torture your ex with success through osmosis. Show other people your success. Get other people to admire you, and your ex will become jealous by how much better, quote unquote, you're doing after the breakup. So what are we on now? Way number 5, use subtle jealousy pictures. So this is actually sort of a concept that I cannot claim credit to. It's actually someone in our private Facebook support group. But basically, if you want to get your ex jealous, one of the best things you could do is go on a date with a friend, or go on a date with a girlfriend or a guy friend or someone platonic, and get them to take you out to like a food-based place and a restaurant. And then as you get your food, take a picture of the food, but make sure you crop the picture to make sure that you have your date or your friend's elbow in it or arm in it, so they can see that you're with someone else. So this is like a really good example of subtle jealousy. We're not a huge fan of in-your-face jealousy. There is a time and place for it, but this is not the time and the place for it. So subtle jealousy, this is actually something that we have seen success with. I did not come up with this. This is actually a coaching client, and then people in our private Facebook group have literally put together like an album full of these type of pictures that anyone can use. So that's kind of cool. What are we on now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Way number 6, compare your ex to someone else. All right. My wife came up with this one. This is the type of jealousy that will only work if you and your ex are on really good terms and you're talking and building rapport. Usually it's best if it's done in person. Let's say your ex is like an avid runner, right? And let's say you're out to eat somewhere and someone, runs by working out really hard. Normally, you wouldn't say anything because you don't want your ex's feelings to get hurt, that you admire this person's grit and willpower. But if you're trying to make your ex jealous, a subtle way to make them jealous is to actually compare your ex without comparing them to this person. Your ex is known for running, right? So as this person runs by, that's not your ex, and you're on a date with your ex, you should look at the person and say, wow, that guy's in really good shape. And that in and of itself will create this comparison with your ex and almost force them to want to compete and prove to you like, I'm in better shape than this guy. That's a clever tactic as well. Way number 7, become less available. So this one's actually very self-explanatory. A lot of the problems that we're finding a lot of our clients have is the fact that they're willing to drop everything at the drop of a hat to please their ex whenever their ex becomes available. So let's say your ex asks you out. Your first reaction is, yes, name the time and place, I'll be there. Instead, what you should do is become less available. I always like to tell people, if your ex asks you out, one of the dumbest things you can do is immediately accept. One of the smartest things you can do is accept, but say, I can't on that day. I can only do it on this day. Because what this does is show your ex that your time is valuable. And if they want to see you, guess what? They're going to have to fit in on your schedule. So it's kind of like this subtle hoop they have to jump through to please you. Way number 8, look better than you did during the relationship. This may be the most controversial one because I realize we live in this society where we are constantly trying to make people feel like they're okay the way they are. And they are, but I will not lie to you. The fact is, if you look better than you did during the relationship, and this doesn't have to mean like, hey, you lose like 50 pounds. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying like in every single social media post you post, make sure you look awesome. Dress up. Wear makeup if you're a female. Just do everything you can to look as good as you possibly can. And if you feel like you don't look good, we have our problem right there. The problem is you care too much about what your ex thinks and what other people think. And we need to stop that because what matters is what you think of yourself. So your problem is a confidence problem, and that's where you should start. But ultimately, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make your ex realize how much better you are without them. In and of itself, just looking better than you did during the relationship will trigger this sort of comparison on how you are now versus how you were during the relationship. And they'll get jealous by the fact that, hey, why didn't they dress up like this when we were together? Way number 9, have a really close guy friend. In and of itself, this is something that really works well if your ex already exhibited jealousy of this particular person. So yeah, I guess I'll tell you an actual story of my wife. So my wife, before she dated me, there was this guy that she was dating, and my wife was very nice to everyone. But at the time, she was dating this guy, but this guy became extremely jealous of one of her friends that was a guy. And they were just platonic friends. Nothing had happened. But the fact that she was just friends with this guy was enough to trigger extreme bouts of jealousy and all of that. So when the breakup inevitably occurred and she just hung out with this guy friend at parties and things like that, or get-togethers, and oftentimes it wasn't just like one-on-one. She'd be in a group of friends and this guy would be there with his group of friends. That made the ex extremely jealous because there was already this chip on the shoulder because your ex is sitting there and thinking, see, I knew it. I knew you had a thing for them. And that kind of actually creates jealousy and insecurity. If you have a really close guy friend or a really close girlfriend, if you're a guy, just hanging out with them and not making out with them or doing things like that will be enough to make your ex jealous. Okay, so way number 10, compliment someone else in front of your ex. So probably the best way to do this is if you and your ex are kind of in a group meetup, what you should do is you should give your ex attention, but you should also give someone else like your ex attention, even if you don't really like the person. And the best way to do this is to compliment that someone else and act really interested in what they say, because this in and of itself will make your ex jealous. Way number 11, go on dates with someone new. This is the most obvious one that I could possibly come up with, but simply going on dates with someone new. And I think usually when you pair this with the subtle jealousy pictures, even the Holy Trinity aspect, and not being too obvious about like, hey, I'm going to go on a date with someone new and make my ex jealous by making out with them and taking a picture and posting on social media. That's not what we're going for here. You're just going to have a good time with this new person. There's nothing wrong with that. I think if you feel any shame about you going on dates with someone new, you're allowed to feel how you should feel, but you're not doing anything wrong. Just like your ex isn't doing anything wrong when they go on dates with someone new. This is part of the deal with breaking up. But yes, it's been proven to make exes extremely jealous. And the final, way number 12, is to outgrow your ex. This is maybe the most important sort of concept mindset that I try to teach women and men to have, because oftentimes the way they spend their time during no contact is not in outgrowing their ex, it's in obsessing about their ex. But where this really comes into play is if you're able to outgrow your ex by the time that you talk to your ex, so it's almost like you kind of don't want them back anymore by the time you talk to them. In my experience, it's such a massive paradigm shift that when your ex realizes like, wait, why aren't they as into me as I expected? They become disappointed and maybe even a little jealous that they're still hung up a little bit on you.